Hello, in this online video we're going to look at educational resources that are available online for helping you get to know and use AFNI better. On this main page of the documentation, in this section, Educational Resources, we see the first thing that's listed are bootcamp recordings. Right now there are two sets of prior bootcamps whose videos we have online. So this is from an NIH bootcamp recording, and listed day by day here are videos, the accompanying PDF or handout, and a brief list of the contents or notes that are covered inside there. So if you've been to a previous bootcamp, or if you haven't been, these can equally be useful for learning more or catching up. There are also a section here on useful outside lectures. So these are not bootcamp recordings specifically, but these are recordings from a summer course that's run by the Banditini group at NIH. And if you go here, you'll see a link to several past summer's courses on various topics. So for example, here you can see that there's a link to the video and accompanying PDF, and you can see who the lecturer is. But these topics actually cover much more than just MRI or even neuroimaging, and so these may be of much broader interest. There are a lot of very interesting topics that are covered here throughout. So it's a nice resource to have. The GUI tips that are shown here are helpful references for using the AFNI GUI. So here I'm in a directory where I have data from the bootcamp. So if I just type AFNI, you may be familiar with the fact that I can, let's say, take this image window here, and there are ways that I can use buttons to do things to the image to make it look the way I want. Like, there are also key presses. For example, if I hit the L key right now, you'll notice the image changes, and you'll see down here what's happening. At this moment, when I started AFNI, I had left equals left set. This is a radiological convention. If you prefer the neurological convention of left equals right, then you can change that here in the GUI very easily with this key press. And you can find all the key presses. Actually, you can access them from the GUI here in this button, AFNI Tips. And there's a list of several descriptions about using AFNI, but then also keyboard shortcuts. And this one in particular, left equals right, mirror image. And there's, as you can see, quite a lot of them. And also there are shortcuts for the graph viewer window and things like that. So this can be useful to know about in order to remind yourself if you can't remember what a key press for something is, or just to learn more about key presses to make it easier for you to use the GUI. That exact same list is here under list of all AFNI GUI tips. This is the same list. It's just a little bit easier perhaps to search or read. So if I search for the word aspect, for what is the key press to fix the aspect ratio, or I could search for left, right, and this was the key press that I just used. This can be a nice resource for using the GUI more efficiently. So the key presses generally affect the GUI as kind of a one-off. So next time you run AFNI, you might have to hit the key press again to make that change happen. The AFNI environment variables are a list of basically default settings for how the GUI looks and behaves, and actually even AFNI programs to a larger extent. And there are many of these. And this is a list of all the things that you can kind of change by default and set for how you want AFNI to behave. So let's take a look at this left-right flipping case. If I want my image window to open up and that axial image to always have left equals right by default instead of left equals left, what I can do is I can open up the file that contains these environment variables. So I'm going to use AFNI open -E to have AFNI find a text editor. If you know a text editor on your computer, you can use that. And in my home directory, there should be a .afni rc file. This is part of the default setup instructions. If I open this file, in this text editor here, I see a list of a lot of environment variables equal some value. And some of them are a number or a keyword or a path. It depends on the variable. Having two Slashes like this at the beginning of a line means this is commented out. So all these are commented out to describe a little bit what each environment variable does. A much more full description is here. And actually there are more environment variables listed on this page than what are in the default file. You can add some of them in, and during the course of some of these setup videos we will. The one we're interested in at the moment is this left, something about left and right. So here there's an environment variable called AFNI left is left. By default it's set to be yes. If I set it to be no and save the file. Now the next time I run AFNI, so I'm just going to type AFNI in the same directory again. Let's take a look at my axial window here, and I see that indeed left equals right. So this is true of most functionality of the AFNI environment variables. When you set it, the next time you run AFNI GUI or an AFNI program, that change will be affected. Okay? And if I don't want that set, indeed, I'll just go back to my usual left equals left. Now I've set it, and I type Control S here to save it in this particular GUI editor. So the next time I run AFNI, left will be left again. Here's quite a useful section, classified programs. We work for the government, so classified has a different connotation. Here what it means is we've categorized or grouped the set of AFNI programs. So there's over 600 programs within AFNI that cover lots of different types of tasks. And what we did is we thought, in order to make it easier for people to find a program they want to do a specific task, if they know the general thing that they want or they want to search on this page, that might help them find it more easily. So for example, if you want to know how to blur or smooth a data set, you can go here, and these are all the programs in AFNI for doing that. So there's a list of all the programs. Each of these here, if I click on it, I'm using the middle mouse button click to open in a new tab, then I get brought to the help page for that program. It's the same help that you would see here if you typed 3D merge, for example, here. Or even a better way here, 3D merge minus hview to open up the help file in a separate text editor. Okay, so those are the same files, so you can check it out in more detail. Here there's a brief description, which is useful because it can help you if you're searching on the page. This enumeration to the left reflects just a kind of a hand-waving system that we put together. A 5 means that this is a program that probably every AFNI user should know about because it's something that gets used fairly often in day-to-day processing. So anything with a 4 or 5 is really something to be aware of. The 1s and 2s may be older programs or outdated. For example, here this uniformize is obsolete, and we point at a much more useful or modern 3D unifies. And what that does is it corrects, as you can see here. Okay, so this can be useful. There's lots of different sections here, the time series preprocessing, and anyways, you can browse through this, but this is a useful way to try to find a program. Okay, so I think that covers the main sections here. There are some miscellaneous ones, like a list of all AFNI color bars. I think this might have to be actually slightly updated, but this is most of the color bars. If you want to see what's available as both an overlay type image, and these are kind of ROI based, you can see some color bars are more appropriate for ROIs and things like that. But this is useful for getting to know main AFNI programs. Another useful part here is the tutorial and example. So rather than program by program lists and categories, these are slightly more involved examples for how to do a certain task. So for example, if you want to know how to work with ROIs in different ways, making and viewing spheres in Summa, for example, here are 4 or 5 different ways with examples and images that you can make and view spheres, depending on what you want. So there's a large number of tutorials, and we hope to add to this over time as well, but this can be very useful.